Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admiral Sandelich. Now, the Zimbabweans who are not in Zimbabwe, the educated Zimbabweans who did not go home to vote for change, the Zimbabwean scholars and all other Zimbabweans who are working in other countries who did not participate in the latest elections have contributed in making Zimbabwe the way it is and the way it's going to be in the future. Because Zimbabwe needs Zimbabweans to solve its problems. The reason there are a lot of them running away from Zimbabwe to South Africa, to Europe and America, is because that they can see that there is no life in Zimbabwe. They go elsewhere to seek life. But when there's a chance to try and change that, they no longer want to go back. I mean, I did not hear anyone saying that if Zimbabweans can come back to Zimbabwe, they will be arrested for not staying in Zimbabwe. But we see them saying that the Zimbabwean elections were not fair. We see them saying that the elections are rigged. The results are not correct. We see them crying that SADC doesn't take them serious. And they seek intervention. But they do this from the comfort of their homes, from the comfort of their couches abroad. Each and every 5 years, countries afford their people an opportunity to vote for leaders or any political party that they think will liberate them or it's good to lead their state. In August, it was that chance for Zimbabweans to go into Zimbabwe in numbers to get rid of the ZANU-PF, to get rid of Mnangangwa, whose leadership is not taking Zimbabwe anywhere, because that's what they are saying. I think Nelson Chamisa was supposed to win the elections outright, but he was betrayed by the people who are clever Zimbabweans, who are professors in other universities in the world, who are lecturers in universities in South Africa, who are professionals in South Africa and all other countries, excluding their own. Clever Zimbabweans have let Chamisa down. He lost because of them. We saw the disruptions of their elections. We saw the disruptions of CCC media briefings. We saw those who were there to observe elections being intimidated by ZANU-PF-led government, the military and the police. Those who saw the brutality of the police were scared to even vote for change because they thought maybe there's going to be war. But there are Zimbabweans who understand the dynamics, but they didn't go home to participate. I am of the view that they are cowards and they contributed into letting CCC down. There's no doubt that Chamisa is a good leader. There's no doubt that he can liberate Zimbabwe from where it is. But he was let down by those who have the means to put him to power. He was let down by all these clever Zimbabweans who have moved out of Zimbabwe or from Zimbabwe to go and stay elsewhere and be professionals there with their families and not participate in elections. So they were cowards. They know what they want, but they are scared to go for it. I mean, one trip to Zimbabwe for a weekend wouldn't cost them that much. I'm talking about professors. I'm talking about engineers. Zimbabweans have good education and they are not scared to study further and become professionals. But they are no longer interested in Zimbabwe. Because if they were interested in Zimbabwe, they would have gone back in numbers to put ZANU-PF out of power. But they failed. They failed Zimbabwe. They failed their parents. They failed their relatives. They failed everyone, children of Zimbabwe. They failed the future of Zimbabwe. Liberation movements were at their climax in the 80s and 90s when they took power and independence because they were led by young people. But now we see liberation movements being run by very old people who do not want to give young people a chance. And I think political parties like ZANU-PF, ANC, I mean, these are political parties who must move. They must step down. And other political parties that are led by young people should be given a chance. And the only people who must do that, it's us, it's the youth. It's these clever blacks, Zimbabwean foreign nationals who are in South Africa, who are in other continents. Because when you read the history of liberation movements, you will see that when African countries started getting their independence, the liberation movements were run by young people. But we don't want war. We're not saying that opposition parties run by young people must always use a coup to take power. There are means, and elections are one of the powerful means that are there to take power. Peaceful. But having this power as young people in our hands, we are failing ourselves. And we are still taking the power to older people to decide the future which they will not see. Mnangangwa will decide the future that they will not see. If, for example, it's going to have a 10-year, 20-year development plan, it won't be there. And they will be reckless with that thing. So you need someone who is young, energetic, like the way they took power in the 80s and the 90s in South Africa. They were still energetic. But now we see presidents in their 60s, 70s. They don't want to step down, from the leadership positions. They still want to be there leading us. Where are they leading us to? If they were great leaders, they should step down, give young people a chance to lead, and they should advise. Because we need their experience, we need their knowledge. But their leadership we don't need. There is no way that a person who is in his 70s, 80s will be productive. Never. This person can have the greatest knowledge. For example, in South Africa, we have President Mbeki. He has knowledge and he's advising. We want him there, it's fine. We need everyone else who is in these political parties to step down and advise, be an advisor. They can even be paid for that, it's not a problem. But they must not be the one who makes decisions. In South Africa, President Mbeki recently said now he's not sure if the ANC is a party we should vote for in 2024. That's how fair he is. To say He's no longer convinced because he says it is run by a criminal, a local criminal. So he is holding the ANC's leader to account. And he's one of them. He was once the president of South Africa. He's an ANC member. I believe in good standing. But he says he is not sure in 2024 what's going to happen. Because the leader now is a criminal. So Mnangangwa should be on that bench, looking at young people executing duties of political leadership while they observe and correct from the benches. But they don't want that. They want to be there to enrich themselves, enrich their relatives and their business partners, while structures dilapidate, while the health system becomes weaker and weaker, and so forth. So I am of the view that young Zimbabweans who are professionals, who are doing good, and those who are not doing good, especially those who are in South Africa, they should have fled back to Zimbabwe, and infiltrate voting stations. Vote for CCC and come back. Give it power, come back to South Africa. When things start taking shape, and then they could go back to Zimbabwe and live a life that they always hoped for. But that is not what they want. They were given a chance to go and vote for an alternative. They stayed in South Africa. They stayed in Europe. They stayed in America. They stayed in all other, continents. They stayed in India and elsewhere because they are all over. This is bad. They betrayed Chamisa. CCC was betrayed by the Zimbabweans who were supposed to give it themselves at least 2 days to go and vote for change in Zimbabwe, but they chose otherwise. This is Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admasa Ndlichaku. Let's not forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Let us grow together. Let's communicate, engage in the comment section below. And let us subscribe. On your bottom left, there is a YouTube pic or picture. When you click there, you easily subscribe. You don't need to open my page. Even on this video, you can easily subscribe. This is Authentic Info Podcast. Thank you for watching.